Welcome to Kicking It with Coach K podcast. This is episode 19. I got a special show for you guys today. We're going to actually mix things up a little bit. In life, in sports, and anything that you do, you have to always have an ability to adapt. All right. So today, we're taking a quick little turn. We're going to adapt. I do have a show plan though. I've had this show plan for a while. So this is pretty cool stuff that we're going to go over today. Special show. The first half of this is going to be the 5 things that I've learned in my first decade as a coach. So I'm going on my first decade, getting close there to that. These are the 5 things that I've learned throughout my years of coaching. And this is just something if young coaches coming into the game and different things, or maybe as coaches that have been in the game for a while, but just learn something new, different perspectives, right? So that's going to be the first thing we kind of go over today. And then I'm going to give some student athletes some game with 5 pieces of advice to student athletes trying to make it to the next level. And the next level being just getting better. Maybe you're a bench player and you want to become a starter. Maybe you're trying to get to college. Just getting to the next level of what that level means for you. So before we dive in today, this show is brought to you by BrainJerk Entertainment, Kennedy Health and Wellness. Welcome to the BrainJerk era. Love these guys. These guys are up to all types of events and podcasts and everything in the community. They're involved in so much, not just on their own, right? They're involved with a lot of different businesses doing different things. Again, different fundraisers and events for the city and community throughout the year. They have a blind dining event coming up, or actually last night. That was last night, right, Josh? Rescheduled for July. So the blind dining event was rescheduled for July. Make sure you check their page. You guys, BrainJerk Entertainment on Facebook and Instagram. You guys can find all the updates to all their events. I know they have a comedy show coming up here pretty quick too. So make sure you check out the Big Boys of Comedy. Again, the podcast network. They got episodes of Pillar Talk, the morning show, Light It Up with Josh. We got Kicking It with Coach K. We got Boss Talk. So all types of podcasts on the podcast network, content for everybody. So make sure, what's that? And more to come, definitely. More to come. These guys are full of ideas. I'm telling you, they always stay putting stuff out for people. So I think that's huge, right? Huge to have content and then opportunities to be able to take family, loved ones, kids. Again, I want to make sure I make this clear before I get off of this and keep moving on. These guys have something for everybody. So if you're looking for something to do with your significant other, there's something there. If you're looking for something with the kids, the family, there's something there. Looking for something to do alone, there's something there. So just make sure you go on social media and follow them. Again, that's BrainJerk Entertainment. You can find them on Instagram and Facebook. This show is also brought to you by Kennedy Health and Wellness. One-stop shop, everything wellness, from body care and candles to coaching services. So we just dropped our summer collection. And to be honest with you guys, I got to shout out my wife. This lemonade scented collection that my wife just dropped has been the best seller that we've actually ever had at Kennedy Health and Wellness. So huge appreciation to everybody who's ordered and shared that and supported us in any way. We're off to a great start this summer, probably our best month in 2 years. So we appreciate you guys big time. So make sure you check that out at kennedyhealthwellness.com. So before we dive into our show today, we're going to shout out to our sponsors. Got to give these places a lot of love. And just want to take a few minutes to maybe speak about a few of these places, because I got a couple things here that I just would like to share with everybody. So Amaya's Fresh Mexican Grill, and I want to give Amaya's a shout out because they so every month we do a lifter of the month at Erie Mason, and Amaya's was generous enough to give us a couple gift cards last month. So shout out to Amaya's for supporting the kids in the community and the school. You guys are awesome. Little Brown Jug, Lane's Pizzeria. Lane's Pizzeria involved in everything right now. Pizza's fantastic. I just had it at Maybe Days for the first time. Great stuff. Make sure you guys go down there right across from the Little Brown Jug, our previous sponsor. IWR, Muggsy Sports Grill and Bar, Monroe Sports Center Bowling, Nerdy Designs, All Hard Athletics, Monroe County Sports Network, and 1817 CrossFit. The new store is open at All Hard Athletics. That's in Dundee, Michigan, 143 Riley Street. I went out there for the grand opening. Incredible store, very clean, very well put together, a lot to choose from. Again, that's a great location for a lot of schools in this county. So I know we get people from all over the county that listen to this podcast. If you're in the Milan, Tecumseh, Dundee, Britton, Deerfield, if you're in these areas, even as far as like out of the county, if you're in the Ann Arbor area, that's a great location for you to be able to get some gear, some custom gear, jerseys, shirts, hats, whatever you need. All Heart's got you covered. So shout out to All Heart. We also want to give them some credit. They put together these shirts for us, incredible shirts for the podcast. Just awesome people as well. I really, really can't stress that enough and want to add that to this. Laura, shout out to her. Amazing people. I met her husband and her family at the grand opening. They are just incredible people. So make sure you stop into All Heart. The sports performance class at 1817 CrossFit, we're continuing next week. We've seen a rise this week in about 3 or 4, and we got a couple new kids signed up. That is that's very inexpensive. I'll be honest with you. I'm pretty sure it's the most inexpensive training option for athletic development, sports performance in Monroe County, and even probably downriver. Is very inexpensive. So make sure you guys stop in. And if you're interested in just developing, whether it's strength, conditioning, mobility, speed, agility, quickness, we cover everything at that camp. So that's noon to 1 on Saturdays at 1817 CrossFit. All right. Shout out to them. Also a sponsor of the show. Just real quick before we jump into our quote, our flag football league and our football skills camp, the Opportunity Center football, we are still open for registration right now, but we're going to be ending registration on Friday. All right. So this is the last week, the last few days here, 4 or 5 days that you can get your registration in. So that's a free camp and free flag football league. We start on June 23rd. On June 23rd, we're going to have our first game, first practicing game, and then we're all going to, or it's encouraged that we're all going to go over to the All-Star game, the Monroe County All-Star game at Erie Mason and watch that. Shout out to all the seniors and everybody that will be participating in the All-Star game or doing what they can to make it happen for the kids. So that's big time stuff. We also have a volleyball camp coming up next week. Riley Eiler will be on. Shout out to Riley. She'll be on next week, though, to share her story, to talk about some of her thoughts. And she'll also be teaming up along with Coach Brooke at Allen Park. Shout out for our volleyball camp. And we'll have a flyer next week on the table. And we'll kind of show you guys and give you guys some information on that. Quote of the day: coaching is making men do what they don't want so they can become what they want. That's by Coach Tom Landry. And again, that's coaching is making men do what they don't want so they can become what they want. Again, men, women, whatever. We're just in a scenario. That's your job as a coach, right? Is to make people do things that push them out of their comfort zones into growth so that they become the next version, next level of themselves and continue to evolve. That's why we chose the quote of the day. Great quote. And the read of the day. So we always got our read of the day. This is by Coach JB, Coach Jason Brown. Hate me now, love me later. If you guys don't know who Jason Brown is, go watch the last couple seasons of Last Chance U. Very entertaining. He's a hard knock guy, very no nonsense. But again, a lot of his philosophies, especially in this book, focus on doing what's uncomfortable now and pushing yourself to the limits now so that you can get out of this to the furthest, right? So you can get to the best of your ability and so that you can surpass others that aren't doing this. So great book. Make sure you guys check it out. So guys, today, again, I talked about this earlier and shared a little bit. We are going to cover 5 things that I learned in my young coaching career. So these are 5 things that I thought were a little bit outside the box, unorthodox. These are not your cliche, typical, every coach speak. Some of them may sound a bit like that just because it's routine and these are things that have to happen, systematic to win. But I thought these were all things that kind of just came from experience, kind of came from my own heart, my own experience, not a textbook, and not just something that is standard. So the first thing, these are in no order, but the first thing that I learned in my young coaching career is to be systematic and automatic. So when you're systematic, it means things happen for you automatically. It doesn't necessarily mean they always go correctly. There's always teaching to be done and slight adjusting, but it puts you in a position where you know what you're doing every single day, and guys get where they're supposed to be, if that makes sense. It controls chaos. So what we want to do is we always want to kind of eliminate decision making. I just put out on my Instagram story last week, might have even been this week, but I put out that when you have systems, whether it's meal plans, whether it's organized times to do things, whether it's how you delegate your time, it eliminates thought processes, right? And I mean that in a good way. When you make decisions, you want them to be tough decisions that need to be calculated. You don't want to sit here and think every day about what you're going to have for dinner or what time you're going to run practice, or these different simple decisions that could just be put in automatic or systematic automatic, right? So put them in a system, have a routine, know how you're doing. And I mean this about everything. Know how you do practice every year, know when you're starting, know how you do all your different award ceremonies. Just know how you do everything. Know how you're doing grade checks every week. Have a system to how you do it, and do it the same every single week. That way the chaos, it's more of a controlled chaos, and it's lesser of a problem, all right? Because most of the problems are solved with just knowing where I'm supposed to be and knowing what I'm supposed to be doing. So systematic, automatic eliminates decision-making and controls the chaos. The second thing, as a coach, you have to have non-negotiables that are defined constantly. So what this means is you have to come up with ways of doing things for you and your team, your kids, and you can't break on them. You have to be able, and this is something that I'm still learning, to be transparent, and it's something that I've learned over time. Establish these, and then make sure they're defined every single step of the way, and don't crack on it. All right, don't break on it. So if one of your non-negotiables is to show up 15 minutes early, if that's like a non-negotiable, like I think for my team to win, no matter what, they have to show up 15 minutes early. I think that's just a thing that winning teams do. If that's a non-negotiable, you can't stray from it. You can't break from it. It has to be the standard, and it has to be defined constantly. And what I mean by defined constantly is you're not just telling the kids to do it, you're telling them why they're doing it. All right. And I think that's a key coaching point. You can't just tell them to show up 15 minutes early. You need to define to them clearly why you're showing up 15 minutes early, or, the level of teams that do show up 15 minutes early. But it needs to be constantly defined to the kids. It's something that, in coaching, we find it where we have to say things a lot, right? We find ourselves where because in football, especially, there's a lot of kids, and kids are young, and they're learning how to absorb information. And they're learning how to honestly have listening skills, if we're being real. So when you're coaching kids, you have to have the ability to just be able to define things and define that why on a daily basis, and make sure that it becomes just a second thought to the kids. It's just how they do things, right? This is how you do it. We put it in them, engrave it in their mindsets. Now this is how they do it without even thinking about it. So have non-negotiables that are defined. Third is spend time building relationships and don't get caught in the X's and O's. This is going to be a big one for me. I'm going to stick on this one for a minute. Too many of us think we can win games by out scheming and by out kind of even technique. Like, I'm a big technique coach. I got that from Coach Cersei. Shout out to Coach Cersei. But I also know that nothing replaces trust. And I know this sounds like coaches speak. I know people have said this at clinics, whatever, but this is the truth. If a kid doesn't trust you, scheme, X's and O's don't matter. You have to start from the relationships and build outward. So, when you first get to a place, I don't even know, when you first get to a school, or every year when you first got newcomers coming in, right? I think it's more important that there's an emphasis constantly on, like, we need to trust each other, the brotherhood, the teammate aspect of this, than there is actually the X's and O's. And I know that might sound crazy to some coaches. And I'm not saying X's and O's and technique aren't important. They absolutely are, 100%, obviously. But there is a level of the teams that tend to play together and gel together well, tend to win at very high levels and can overcompensate for talent and different things that they may lack. So I think to build those relationships and not get caught in X's and O's, it establishes a trust. It makes the kids work harder for you. And then in return, by now kids trusting you and working harder for you, now it's easier for you to teach the X's and O's and teach the game, because now they're locked in, now they're focused, now they're moving at 100 when it comes to effort and when it comes to listening, because they trust you and you trust them, and there's a relationship and bond built. So now it's all right. Now it's just different. Now I can move for this guy because I need to have his back. Coach has got my back. So that's important. I don't think you can get guys to buy in fully and to learn the X's and O's in the scheme unless you build a relationship. Once you build that, the teaching part of football becomes really easy. I'll give you guys an example. I had a linebacker last year, and he was like third or fourth in the state in tackles. Shout out to my guy Loudon. He may watch this, and I know some other Eagles are watching, so I got to give y'all love on this show. But Loudon was a guy who, when I came in, and the whole linebacking crew, like, to be honest, I was tight with all them guys. I'm just using a senior that had high success as an example. But I'm tight with all my linebacking core. Them's my guys. But he's a guy, right? Come in, build relationships with these guys, and then it becomes really easy to coach these guys. And they take the coaching cues and they listen and they learn and they fly and they do it at 100 miles an hour. And I don't know if I came in with these guys, with Loudon, with Trent, with Mike, with all them guys. Shout out to y'all my guys. I don't know if I didn't come in and establish a relationship with them individually and then a relationship with our position group. Like, we run the defense. That's just kind of our attitude, or was last season. Like, and will be this year. We're the aggressors. We run the defense. We're run stoppers. A lot of our league runs, right? Or a lot of the teams on our schedule ran the ball. So we're the guys who set the tone for the defense. There's an attitude there, and then there's a love upon us. There's a brotherhood upon us, even in our individual unit and then the defense and so on. But without building that bond between the linebacking core and then the defense, and then again individually, we wouldn't have had the same success with a lot of them guys. And specifically, the guys who had a ton of success that reached high heights last season. A lot of that comes from them being able to trust the guy next to him on the football field, being able to trust Coach, being able to trust Coach McQuay, shout out for what he's calling, and all them different things. So you got to build them relationships. It's the most important part. And I'm going to be real with you guys. These kids are, no matter what area you come from, they're going through stuff. This is going to be the gem of the show right here. I'm about to drop the whole gem of the show right now. All right. I have coached at Summit Academy, Romulus High School, Wayne Memorial, and Erie Mason. All different areas, all different levels, all different communities, all different cultures, all different problems. But the one consistent thing is these kids are all going through something that they could use coach's help. They could use a coach. They could use that mentor, that leader, that friend. We're all going through something in life, adults included. So any kid who's watching this isn't me looking down on kids. We're grown adults going through stuff too. That's people, right? That's human. But these young guys, they need you to build the relationship so that they have a guy to trust, so that they have, or a girl to trust, a woman to trust, so that they have somebody that they know no matter what. And outside of the field, they know if it's 2:00 in the morning, they can call you and they know you'll help them out. These kids need that because they may be lacking things in their home life. They may be lacking things just in their personal life in various aspects. And that leader, that mentor may be the person or the thing that can help them continue to grow, right, and progress and maybe overcome that. So I think the relationship part, that's the most important part at the core, is just remember these kids go through stuff too. And I think we got to be there for them. All right. And I think a lot of kids need mentors. You don't know what they're going through at home. We don't know what they're going through with boyfriends, girlfriends. We don't know what their living situation is. You just never know with people's lives. So, and that's the most important part of being a coach, is being there for those kids. So make sure that the relationship is built first, and then worry about the X's and O's. Number 4, make losses a tool and build up the lesson learning part. Make losses a tool. We'll break that part down first. So losing it like even in college and high school at every level, it can carry over, and it can almost leave like a bad juju, a bad feeling in your locker room, in your at your practice field, in your weight room. It can just leave a bad feel among people. And sometimes losing translates to a few losses because mentally the fortitude is not built to be able to sustain that and bounce back, which is why we're important as coaches that we help our kids build that mental fortitude and put them through challenging situations that really make them uncomfortable and really make them overcome obstacles so that they understand how to do that. But when it comes to making losses a tool, I found last year, and this is the first year I kind of doing this, I preached to our middle school kids that we didn't have a record. We didn't count records. We had wins and lessons. We didn't necessarily have wins and losses. And if we won, great. If we didn't, we need to learn from it. We need to find out how to win. We need to find out how to solve the problems that kept us from winning. But we wanted to use losses more as a tool than we wanted to let it crutch us. And I think that's a super important thing for coaches to do, is make sure that losses at first fuel you and piss you off, make you angry. They shouldn't destroy you to where they bring you down, to where you don't up your game. They should make you mad, right? It should piss you off when you lose a game, and it should make you want to go harder to win the next game. And I think just making sure that kids understand that losing, while it sucks, it's an incredibly great tool because it exposes you and it exposes all the things that you need to work on now. And if you're willing to go to work on Monday after that Friday game or Sunday or whatever, or that Saturday morning practice, if you're willing to go to work and keep your head high and be encouraged and take what happened and take lessons from it, you're going to be in a great place that next Friday night compared to the previous. And I think that's just a big point. So make losses a tool. Make sure they're not detrimental to your team. Make sure they're not a killer. Make sure they're used as a weapon to make you stronger and used as a book, right? Almost as knowledge. You want to make it. That's why we watch film. We need to get smarter from this loss. And make sure your kids know that. Always preach that to them. We had a rough season at middle school last year at Erie Mason. There's no secret. But the whole entire time, we continue to preach that every week we have to find a way to get better. It can't get worse. We cannot let it get worse. It has to get better. And the only way to do that is to learn from the things we're doing wrong. And if you're focusing on the actual loss itself, you don't focus on the things within the loss that you needed to improve, if that makes sense. Build up the lesson learning part. So we kind of talked about that. But just make sure you're always preaching to the kids about the lessons and the opportunities to learn that come from losing. We got to take the attention off the actual loss and make it about the opportunity to get better. All right, number 5, and this one's a big one. Challenge kids to be great and put them in positions to rise. So we need to challenge our kids in various ways and various aspects, whether it's, hey, man, I think you can go out here and get 25 tackles tonight. Stay hydrated, go play hard. I think you could do this. I'm challenging people, right? I'm challenging somebody, whether it's, I think you guys could run the table this season. I think you guys could make the playoffs for the 4th straight year, whatever it may be. It's challenging the kids and making sure you're putting them in a position to rise. Another thing when it comes to this is an interesting one, but I don't want to forget this, so I needed to get it out there. When we were at Romulus, shout out to Coach Search for this one, and I'm not going to say any names, but there was a young gentleman that was struggling with behavior. And, discipline will work with some kids, but it's a struggle with other situations. And what we found, especially with this kid in particular, and even a few others really, we found that putting the kid in a position higher than he was in previously, putting him in a position to make an impact in the world, in the game, etc., we found that actually brought out better in him than just saying, we've had enough, go discipline him, go discipline him, go discipline him. We actually challenged this kid to do better, to be better. And we put him in a position where we said, look, man, we're going to give you extra reps Friday. We're going to get you in on offense. We're going to do this and that. But you have to earn it now. Like school, you got to stay checked in. Like this is your chance. We're giving you an opportunity to rise up. And I think that was a super important learning moment for me. I think you have to understand the difference between when to challenge, when to discipline. And I think you have to do both of those. I think they're both important, but I think challenging our teams, our position units, our kids, it's just important. We have to challenge them to be great. We have to raise the bar. We've become a participation trophy society. And the world doesn't work like that. This is still a capitalist country, right? There's still a winner and loser in sports. We still need to teach our kids to do great and be great and stop settling. One of the most poisonous things that you can tell your kids, or that you can hear, to be honest with you, as a student athlete, or even as a person in general, is like, you're doing too much. Just take a step down. It's okay. You're fine. You should always be striving to be great, always. And I think as coaches, men, women, we need to start getting back to holding our kids to high priorities, to making sure these guys understand what they're capable of. Kids, everybody has a talent. Everybody has or multiple talents. Everybody has the capability of committing to things. Everybody has the capability of being disciplined. And I think we need to make sure that our kids understand the level of success they can have when they do things in sync and in the right way. So coaches, I think, challenge your kids to be great and put them in positions to rise. And then the other part of that, right, with the positions to rise, is you have to coach them well. And you have to set them up to succeed. So that's your job as a parent and as a coach and as a teacher, is to make sure that now that you're asking for a lot out of the kids, are you putting the kid in a position to obtain that success? And that's just as important. That's on us. That's just as important as the kid's role of showing up and doing their job. Well, if the kid shows up and does his job, but you're not putting him in a good position, he ain't going to get any better or go anywhere. So parents, teachers, coaches, it's as much on us or more that we must put them in positions to rise on that, in that spectrum of things as well. So make sure that you're always doing what you need to do to teach the correct things, to teach the fundamental things, to teach the moral obligations, to teach all them things. Make sure you're doing your job in those respects. That way we're holding everybody accountable and we all understand the standard. So those are the 5 things. So systematic, automatic, have non-negotiables that are defined, spend time building relationships, don't get caught in the X's and O's, make losses a tool and build up the lesson learning part, challenge kids to be great and put them in positions to rise. So that's the first segment of the show. That's something I hope some coaches can take something from. Maybe there's a young coach listening, and I hope maybe they can get something from that. Now, the second part of the show, before we get out of here today, we'll get about another good few more minutes in here for the student athletes. For you guys who listen, who are playing football, volleyball, basketball, this stuff applies to all you guys. This is not a football thing particular. This is a sports thing, a student athlete thing. So these are 5 pieces of advice that I would give to any student athlete trying to make the next level. Again, when I clarify this, when I say make the next level, we're meaning if you're a bench player, you're trying to start. If you're a starter, you're trying to go all league. If you're all league, you're trying to go all region, all state. If you may be trying to go to the next level. But these are the 5 things. So the first one, understand true commitment. So when we look at everything going on today with adults, with college sports, with everything, there's a lot of committing, and there's a lot of this. This word's not even in the dictionary if you look it up. And it was actually Coach JB, shout out, who I heard this on one of his shows. But the word decommit is not in the dictionary or a real word. But we have a lot of committing and decommitting to things in life, whether it's jobs, whether it's relationships, whether it's friendships, whether it's people getting, like, it's crazy, but like people getting animals and then getting rid of them a month later, sports, committing to play a sport and quitting practice after the 3rd practice. Just a lot of changing minds and just kind of quitting, right? So understand true commitment. And true commitment means doing what you said you were going to do long after the feeling has left you. All right. And what that means is when you commit to do something, there's a level of excitement, butterflies, thrilled. There's just some different emotions going on in you. When those feelings leave is when people quit. That's when people decommit. That's when they step away or go down a different path. So to me, understanding the true commitment is when you said you were going to show up for the weight room all summer, but it's 90 out and you got a fan, your friends and families having a pool party. Are you still going to come to the weight room for that hour of the day like you said you were going to? So you got to understand that commitment is doing things even when you don't feel like it. When I had a podcast, shout out to Coach Surs again, my man. Him and I talked about how people, they fall in love with romantic feelings. But when you really love something, you learn to work through it when the romance is gone. And what we mean is, again, romance is almost like the thrill, the excitement. So in marriage, right, there's times in marriage where you don't necessarily love what's going on. You don't necessarily love the situation. You're frustrated with your significant other or whatever the case may be, your guys' situation together with this or that. But the ability to continue to work through that is what true commitment is. And that's not saying every situation in your life is something you need to stick out forever. You also have to understand what's good, what's bad for you, right? And what's going to be conducive to success in your future and happiness. But there's a lot of quitting today early. All right. There's a lot of prematurely quitting just because I lost a spot or things didn't go my way or I had a bad day, so I don't feel like going. Oh, no, I had another bad day. Oh, I'm done. There's a lot of just quitting on sports, on jobs, on different things just because the feeling's not there. So back to the romantic feelings, right, is like when you first do something, you're excited. I'll be real with y'all. I love this podcast. I love it to death. But there's been days that have been really, really tired on Sundays, long weeks of training and coaching and long Saturdays. Saturdays are usually long coaching days. Or we had an event the day before and we were helping out BrainJerk or we were doing this or that. And not every single time I've walked in here has been this overload of excitement. Sometimes, absolutely, but not every time. And that's just because of human emotions, right? Tired, sleepy, long week, the grind. But every single time I've made sure that I showed up and made it here and made sure that I did my job on this podcast. Today, we had a guest that couldn't make it as of late last night. I'm still here doing this show. I'm not going to bail. That's my commitment. Because if I have the ability to get here, health and emergency wise, if that's not a factor, I'm going to my commitments. So true commitment, doing what you said you were going to do after that romantic feeling, that exciting feeling has left you. Build relationships with everybody meaningful. So if you're trying to get to the next level and elevate, you need to build relationships with your position coaches, your coordinators or assistant coaches, your head coach, your teammates. And if you're trying to go to college, you need to get with coaches at the next level. But build meaningful relationships, meaning I'm not just sending a text, hey, how you doing, coach? Oh, cool. How you? Oh, good. Bye. We're really going to, man, I want to know about your life. We need to converse. And I talked about this with coaches earlier, talking to kids. The same goes in reverse. Kids need to talk to coaches. And kids need to be willing to communicate with their coaches too, and be willing to seek their coaches out sometimes. And I think that's extremely important because, again, this is about more than ball. So those relationships, it's what you're going to remember 10 years down the road. It's what you're going to remember 20 years down the road, because those guys, especially in football, those guys are going to be your friends for life. And like I coach volleyball, strength and conditioning at Allen Park, and like I got like this deep feeling that community and like even them, like they're going to be together for a long, long time. That's a family there. And I think that's why, because it can't just be coaches. It has to be the kids too. We all have to make this a unity to build those relationships. So guys, don't ever be afraid to reach out to like college position coaches. But again, don't short talk. Let's really learn about each other, man. Let's really talk to each other. Share your experiences. Share your problems with your coach. Talk about your goals. Talk about everything, man. Talk about, where's your dream place to go on vacation, man? Where are you trying to, what's the place you want to see in your life? Where's your dream school to go to college? But me and my guys, I'm not even kidding you, and even the girls at Allen Park, like I start every session with how was school? How was this week? How y'all doing? we talk before we work. We get to know how the week was going, how you're doing, how are you, before we even jump into work. And those relationships, they just got to be meaningful, though. They can't be quick text. They can't be short, just nonverbal. It's got to be in person, verbal. It's got to be constant communication. Just make sure they're meaningful. Make this experience good for you by having people around you that you love and trust. Also, the other reason is when shit hits the fan and when shit gets tough, you're going to want the people that was around you during off-season workouts and practice every day. Like, you're going to want to trust them people when shit hits the fan. You don't want to be stuck. Sports are chaotic, and you never want to be stuck in a sport full of chaos and things maybe ain't going well, or it's a battle and everybody's pointing fingers at each other and nobody's together. That's the worst position to be in as an individual student athlete, and it's a terrible position to be in as a coach. And if you are there as a coach, you got to change that culture. And if you're there, if you see that as a student athlete, you need to start being a part of the change. But that's got to happen. Build relationships with everyone that are meaningful. All right, this third one, team activities first. If focusing on work outside of your team activities, focus on weakness. So I'm going to call out some people right now. This might hurt some feelings, but shit, here we go. I'm feeling good today, just so we're clear. I'm feeling good. We went out to Toledo today for a 7-on-7. Erie represented. My Eagles represented. Out of 24 teams, we were in the top 4, went to the semis. Guys went in there and did well today. So my energy is good today. I'm just feeling good. So we're just going to get it all out there and talk about it. A lot of these trainers are not good for you student athletes. And I'm not saying that there's not good ones. And I'm not saying this because I'm trying to get you to come train with me. The truth is, though, there's a lot of YouTube and Instagram drills nowadays and stuff trainers are doing with you guys. And a lot of it's like egregious. A lot of it's non-game translating. And to be honest, a lot of it's for clout and show. And if we're being real, like, you should be, if you're at a place that's established or trying to be established, you should be at a place that has team workouts going on where you're doing different speed and agility and conditioning and strength training stuff. Honestly, and this is my opinion, but when you train with somebody, a trainer, or you hire a skill coach, if you should be working on weaknesses and targeting weaknesses. It shouldn't be what that trainer wants to do because it looks good on his Instagram video, or because he tells you like, well, man, you need to do this or that. It should be focusing on things that you actually need to develop. Again, a lot of the stuff you're going to do with your team, and your strengths are your strengths. Your strengths are just things that you build on. They're not things that you necessarily hone in and spend as much time as you should on your weaknesses, obviously. So I just think if you're working with somebody, a trainer, a position skill coach, or even doing camps at different universities or whatever, make sure your team activities come first. So make sure you're always going to your school practices, your school lifts, your school 7-on-7s, your school scrimmages and open gyms. Make sure you always prioritize that. And then make sure if you are going to somebody to train on the side, or you're doing work even alone on the side, make sure you try to focus on your weaknesses. That's time for you to really hone in on your craft and really figure out like, okay, if I'm not so good at this, let me figure out why and let me fix it. So that way, when I go back onto the field or court or back to team activities, it's improving, right? It's something that can translate. So make sure you do things that translate in team activities first. 4, this is going to be a big one. Be where your feet are and extremely intentional at all times. That's outside of sports, in the moment, during drills, etc. Sorry, I was out here yelling all day. My voice is done, gone, done. We went out here and represented. I was getting excited, man. We were rolling. Voice is gone. Be where your feet are and extremely intentional at all times. So know where you're at in every moment. Know where you're going. Know who's around you. Know what situation you're in, and know how to handle yourself, if that makes sense. And I'll elaborate on that just a bit. So for young student athletes, again, I'm speaking to you guys, trying to elevate to the next level as a person, as a football player, as a basketball, volleyball, student athlete, hockey, whatever sport it is. As a student, right? Let's remember just that part. There's things you need to be where you are. So, for example, a lot of kids love sports, so they come out to practice. They work really hard at practice, but they don't love school necessarily. So maybe the work doesn't match fully what they're doing on both sides. Whereas you want to build the overall character of yourself and build habits that translate to all phases of life. And what I mean by that, what I mean by that is like, so when you're in school and you're sitting there at a desk, be in the moment. Learn what you're learning. Don't just go through the motions of sitting there and looking around and not listening, and I'll just do my homework later real quick. And don't do the things that are just going through the motions. Be where your feet are. That means be intentional, be in the moment, be alert, be aware of everything going on. So in that moment, right, that means doing the best I can to respect the teacher, to listen to the teacher and the information that's being given to me so that I can come translate it to the paper, the test, and the knowledge, obviously, first and foremost. And then just knowing, like, on a whole nother note, like situations, like know where to go, where not to go. Know that if you're a young student athlete trying to climb, there's certain people and certain places that you probably can't go and certain things that you can't be around. And it's just at all times in your life, it's understanding who you are trying to be and who you are and who you represent, whether that's your team, your name on the back of your jersey, your family. It's understanding those things and being calculated and thinking through every decision. And that's what that means, being where your feet are. So that's number 4. Number 5, understand where you are and build the character out. So I think for young student athletes, for you guys, it's super important to understand where you're at as a student, an athlete, and a person. So when I break that down, again, to use our guys as an example, our guys go to Toledo today and they face some really good schools, really, really good schools. Shout out to all the schools that were there. I mean, Whitmer, Rouge, Croswell, Lexington. There was a school from like Miami, Florida, Southview. There was some schools. Shout out to the schools that were all in attendance. But these guys got to kind of go see as a student or as a student athlete, they kind of got to go see, like, where do you measure up against other great student athletes in the state? And now even out of this state, right? Now even all the way down in Florida, where do you measure up? And I think it's important to understand where you are at both as an athlete, or all three, as an athlete, as a person, and as a student. Understand where you are as a student. Do you struggle in math, but do you try? Okay, cool. Do you not try, but you struggle? Is that what it is? We got to try. Like, just knowing who you are and where you are, and having an honest assessment of yourself is the first start to knowing how to grow yourself and how to attack this thing to get better. But I think you always got to know where you are, and even in character. So when we talk about character, right, it's and coaches got to teach this younger too. We got to teach young people to hold themselves accountable and just understand kind of where their lapses are in character and where they can improve, right? As adults, you should be on a constant quest to get better. So should the kids. And we should be teaching them that. And if you're somebody who struggles, let's say you struggle with, let's say it's like time, like you're always late to everything. If you're just a kid, or this adults too, if you're somebody who's just late for everything, that's something that you understand. You need to understand that is in your character at this point. Man, I am always late. It is in my character to not give myself enough time or be prepared enough to get out and do stuff. So it's something you got to fix, right? It's something that you have to, but you can't fix things until you understand it. So again, know where you're at as a student, know where you're at as an athlete, and know where your character is as a person. I think those are all, you have to do self-assessments. You got to know where you are, and you got to humble yourself. You can't be too low or too high. There's always a middle ground. Right? You can't think you're a D1 athlete if you're not, but you also, if you're pretty good and you have some abilities, you also have to judge yourself where you're at and then judge yourself where you could be when you put the work in. And I think those are all, again, and the most important one, to be honest with you guys, before we finish on this, the most important one is building the character, because when you build the character up and progress yourself as a person, the other stuff falls in place, right? Your grades tend to get better when you start maybe solving integrity issues or discipline issues or commitment issues, or maybe it's your tardy to class every day, time issues. But once you start solving your character flaws, the stuff in the classroom and on the field, a lot of times tend to follow suit and actually improve for you just by nature of you're just becoming a better person. You're doing things in a better way. You're doing things in a more efficient way. You're doing things in a more disciplined way, and all them different aspects. So those are the 5 pieces of advice that I give to any student athlete trying to make the next level. Understand true commitment, build relationships with everyone that are meaningful, team activities first. If focusing outside team activities, focus on weakness, be where your feet are and extremely intentional at all times. Understand where you are and build from the character out. So guys, before we get out of here, we are back next week, Sunday at 5. We have, again, Riley Eiler. Shout out to Riley. She's coming on next week to talk about this camp that we're doing with the Opportunity Center, talk about her experience as a student athlete in Monroe County, share her story. And again, we're just going to ask her some good questions, but we'll have more updates on that volleyball camp. Also, I just want to say, stay tuned, guys. We did a leadership event, a speaking summit, leadership speaking summit at Oaks. Very small event a few years ago, but awesome event. Shout out to Oaks for having us and allowing us to do that. We're going to be expanding that this year, and I have huge news on that. We're going to do we have found our speaker. We were looking for a main speaker, main keynote speaker. Again, this is going to be sponsored by BrainJerk and the podcast network, Kennedy Health and Wellness, and obviously sponsored by Kickin' It with Coach K podcast. This is going to be fun. And when I tell you guys, when I announce who we got, I'm telling you guys are going to be pumped, especially the Downriver, Monroe County, and football communities. You guys are going to be absolutely thrilled when you guys find out who's coming to join us. So I will drop that next week on the show if we don't drop it throughout the week on social media. So some links for you guys. Need you guys to visit KennedyHealthWellness.com. No and in there. KennedyHealthWellness.com. You can also find Kennedy Health and Wellness on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Coach K93 on Instagram. You can also find our group. We have a Facebook group. It's called Coach K Training and Development. So if you look that up, you can join that group. I post OTA. Shout out to Overtime Athletes. I post events sometimes for these guys when they're coming up, coaching tidbits and just little different videos from coaching cues and all types of stuff. Just giving you guys free game, free information on that page. Also updates from our flag football leagues and all them different things. So make sure you guys go join that group. This podcast has an Instagram, so make sure you go follow us on IG, Kicking It with Coach K. That is the Instagram page. It's just Kicking It with Coach K. Make sure you guys go on. Actually, hold on 1 second. That might be Kicking It with Coach K podcast. Nope, just Kicking It with Coach K. And then last but not least, make sure you guys go on Facebook and Instagram and follow BrainJerk Entertainment. Again, appreciate these guys every week. Hope you guys took something from today. And I'm blessed for you guys tuning in every week. I've gotten a lot of feedback about the show. It's been awesome. Make sure you guys keep tuning in. I'm telling you guys, before I jump out of here, we've got a huge summer ahead. Huge summer. And we've got everybody from, again, coaches to collegiate athletes to high school athletes in our area. We've got people traveling. We've got a guy that we're going to be doing a special episode with here shortly. And he's coming all the way from Battle Creek. So shout out to Coach Blair, by the way. But we got all types of fun stuff. I'm telling you, July and August are going to be absolutely incredible for this podcast. So make sure you keep tuning in. We're going to finish June off with a bang and really get into it this summer. So thank you, guys. Thank you to our sponsors. We'll see you guys next Sunday.